And the reason why we do that, why we stream simultaneously on YouTube and have the Zoom room is not everybody's comfortable with Zoom, and that's okay. We want to be as accessible as possible for folks. And we are live on YouTube. So keep this in mind for our friends in the chat. If you put something in the chat, there's a chance that we might read it out and it might go public on YouTube. So let me go ahead and put the YouTube link in the chat. Feel free to share with any friends or family who aren't in the Zoom room if you want them to be able to attend. I'm going to go ahead and tweet it on the SciStarter account too. So as many people as possible see this and can join our party. And for those of you who just joined us, please introduce yourself in the chat. Put your zip code in there so we can know who we're reaching. That's always really helpful for us. And if you have something you're particularly excited to learn about, please do that. Put that in the chat as well. And select all panelists and attendees if possible, so we can all be part of the discussion and we can get some robust dialogue going. All right. I love that people are coming on in. This is awesome. We're about 2 minutes out. Any other questions from our panelists before we really get going?
Do you want us to stay on mute for the most part?
Yeah, that'd be great. You never know what's going to go on in the background. I know I'll be on mute when I'm not talking. As people come on in, I'm just going to quickly introduce some of our panel who we have. Not all of our panelists will be speaking today. Some of them just joined the party to help us monitor the chat or monitor the YouTube comments. We have Robin Salthouse on the line. She's calling in from Bainbridge, Washington. She's a retired public librarian who agreed to help monitor the comments and make sure we don't miss any questions. We have Michael Blakenhall from All of Us, PA and NNLM, the network of the National Library of Medicine. His colleague Tess is also on the line to help monitor chats and comments. Emmy Hackshaw from All of Us as well is here to help us monitor things. Lori Streams from All of Us will be presenting about All of Us Pennsylvania. And then we have our stars of the show. We have Michelle Lesniak from South Butler, the director of South Butler Library in Pennsylvania, who's going to be interviewing Dr. Connie Walker, who's going to tell us all about the Globe at Night project and questions that we can investigate together with citizen science. Oh, and we also have Kristen and Sandy on the line, part of the team, who will just be helping us monitor things and keep track of things and ensure a good webinar experience for everybody. And then for our panelists, if you get disconnected, not to worry, the internet is the internet and things happen. You can go ahead and use that same link you had for registration to get back in, and I can promote you to panelist again. I'll go ahead and put that in the chat as well really quickly, just in case people need it. So yeah, if you get disconnected, just head back to the link you got when you registered on Zoom and you can get right back in. And I'm dialing in via phone, I'm not just relying on my Wi-Fi because I am paranoid. So I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen because it's on the hour and we have a lot to get through, so we'll go ahead and get started. For those of you who just came in to this webinar, please introduce yourself in the chat, select all panelists and attendees so we can keep track of who's here and we can get some good discussion going. If possible, it'd be great if you could put your zip code in the chat so we can assess, who we're reaching from all over the country, and especially from our awesome South Butler, Pennsylvania community who are helping with this. But you are here because citizen science is meeting summer reading. So thank you so much to the All of Us Research Program, All of Us Pennsylvania, NNLM, the Network of the National Library of Medicine, Mid-Atlantic region, the Imagine Your Story Collaborative Summer Reading Program, and SciStarter, Globe at Night, South Butler Library, all these partners that came together to share this knowledge with you and get you involved in real scientific research that needs your help. I'm Caroline Nickerson from the SciStarter team. I'm going to be your MC today, and I'm going to be walking us through all of our awesome speakers. So to kick things off, we're going to start with a poll. We want to know, have you participated in a citizen science project before? No answers are bad. If you're not sure, that's okay. Just let us know that you're unsure. If you know for sure you've done one, of course, say yes. Some of you may have even done Globe at Night before. And if you haven't done one, you're in the right place because you're going to learn how to do Globe at Night today and get all the instructions you need to get started. So go ahead and vote. Yes, no, unsure. I'm going to close down this poll in just a second. So 3, 2, 1, last chance to vote, and we're ending the poll. All right, so it looks like the vast majority, 62% of folks, have not participated in a citizen science project before. We have 18% that are unsure and 21% that have done it. And for the 21% who have, I'm super interested. If you could put in the chat and tell us which ones you've done, that'd be great. And for those of you who are no's or unsure, you're going to learn how to do Globe at Night today, so you're in the right place. And then we have another poll question to kick us off. We just want to know a little bit about you. So who are you? Are you an inspired, and feel free to answer all that apply. You can click, if you're more than one of these categories, that's totally okay. But we want to know, are you an aspiring citizen scientist? Are you a parent of an aspiring citizen scientist? Are you a teacher, an educator, a troop leader? Are you a librarian or part of a library staff? Are you a researcher or a practitioner? So are you someone who, like Dr. Walker, who runs a citizen science project or is a professional researcher? Are you just a bored person on the internet, or are you none of these? Please let us know who you are. We'd love to know. And quick hint, anyone can be an aspiring citizen scientist. So if you want to fall into that category, that's totally up to you. All right, I'm going to keep this up for just a second more. Last chance to vote. 3, 2, 1, and we're going to end the poll. All right, it looks like the vast majority, 49%, are researchers or practitioners. We have a significant amount of librarians and library staff members here as well. A few parents, a few citizen scientists. Nobody is a bored person on the internet, so that's good. Nobody's bored. And some of you said none of these, which is totally okay too. By the end of the presentation, I hope that you consider yourself a citizen scientist. Now I'm going to hand it over to Michelle to introduce South Butler Community Library in Western Pennsylvania. Take it away, Michelle.
Thanks so much, Caroline, and I appreciate your kicking us off so that we're all thinking about scientists and being a scientist. I'm Michelle Lesniak. I'm the director at South Butler Community Library. Our library is in a small historic town of Saxonburg, which is just 35 minutes north of Pittsburgh. And we are a public library. We were founded in 1978, and we've been providing free library services to 6 rural communities for all of those years. And we also participate in the PA Forward. We're a PA Forward Star Library. It's an initiative that's done in Pennsylvania that helps libraries define a rule so that they are promoting 5 essential literacies, which are considered ways to have success if you are a citizen, whether you be a citizen, as a parent, as a student, as an employer, as an employee, even as a consumer. So libraries are striving to provide programs that reach out and allow you to learn about a diverse number of topics. And all of us, PA is one of the PA Forward partners, and that's really how I connected with Lori during this past year. We have hosted health literacy programs focused on introducing our community to the All of Us research. And we've also been a location where people could join the research study as a participant. So we've been very happy to be doing that. Unfortunately, during our conversation with Lori this spring, we had to cancel our All of Us programs due to COVID-19. And Lori was inquisitive and asked me, what are your challenges now that we have to do everything virtual? And boy, I could really think to that. I said, you know, we have a small staff. Now we've got to change everything to virtual. That's going to be a challenge. We haven't been a virtual centered library in the past. Also, we were in the midst of planning our summer program called Summer Quest. And during that program, we tried to engage all the age groups, not just children, which is what most people think about, but we wanted to involve tweens and teens and adults, and really wanted to focus on the literacies, and health literacy being one of those. So that's where the brainstorming began. And with Lori's help, we've collaborated and brought together all of these partners. And that just makes me so excited, because there's such opportunity here for all of us to learn and to work together. And I think that just spreads the horizons of both the people that participate and the libraries that are able to offer similar programs. So I'm excited to get started, and let's learn about Globe at Night with Dr. Walker. Let's go.
All right. Thank you so much, Michelle. And a quick note, for those of you who have just joined or who may have come in after we got started, please put your name and your zip code in the chat so we can keep track of where people are coming from. And for those of you who filled out our poll about who you are and you selected none of these, you didn't think you were a citizen scientist or a library staff member, if you selected none of these, it'd be great if you could tell us in the chat who you are and what kind of how you define yourself. So we just want to know more about you and make sure we're reaching everybody. But without further ado, I just really want to quickly say what citizen science is. So at SciStarter, we view citizen science as a collaboration between scientists and those of us who are curious, concerned, and motivated to make a difference. And citizen science is as diverse as science itself. I like to say it's everything from astronomy to zoology and everything in between. And citizen science is a really powerful tool for interdisciplinary collaboration. So with a project like Globe at Night, you can study the night sky, and you can also garner insights about things like light pollution and how that affects our health. So citizen science is a really great way to volunteer and take action to learn more about the world. And you can start exploring citizen science at SciStarter.org/NLM. On that webpage, if you remember nothing else from today, remember that URL, because it takes you to an introduction to citizen science tutorial, instructions for Globe at Night and other projects that address human and environmental health, recordings of this event and other events, and so much more. And if you have any questions, please put those in the chat for us, and we'll make sure to get to them by the end of the event. So I mentioned that SciStarter.org/NLM URL. This is the tutorial that I mentioned. It was designed by instructional designers at Arizona State University in partnership with the network of the National Library of Medicine. We're going to be debuting a Spanish language version of it very, very soon. But right now, you can go to SciStarter.org/NLM to click through and engage with about 30 minutes worth of content, giving you the what, who, how, and why of citizen science. And feel free to use it if you're an educator or part of a library staff. We hope that you use it and spread citizen science everywhere. And it's my great privilege to introduce Dr. Walker now. She's the project leader of the Globe at Night project, and she's going to explain a little bit about herself, why she does what she does, and about Globe at Night. So without further ado, Dr. Walker, take it away.
Thank you. It's an honor to be here with you all, and hopefully to get to know you at least through the webinar chat. And I have to say that the Robbins Library in Arlington, Massachusetts was a huge influence in why I became an astronomer. If it wasn't for that library, I don't know, it might have been a different future for me. But today I would like to talk to you about why it is important to consider protecting our night skies from light pollution, and how it's relevant to your lives, how you could easily do something about it, and by getting involved in a citizen science program called Globe at Night, how you can make a difference, as Caroline was saying. Okay. Next slide, thank you. They wanted me to say a little bit about my background and my inspiration, and I have to say that I am a second generation in the United States. No one in my family had ever gone to college, let alone get a PhD before moi, I guess. My main inspiration was my family and that Robbins Library. And without my family, I really would not be here today. However, I had two other inspirations. And one was the Apollo 8 orbiting the moon. And here I'm going to date myself on Christmas Eve, 1968. And taking this shot of Earthrise that you see in the upper left. And of course, it was also inspired by humans landing later on the moon. But until that particular photo that you see here, no one had ever seen the Earth from space like this. And it inspired an entire generation. And the other inspiration for me was the original series of Star Trek, although it took a couple more series before, Star Trek series before women took a significant role in the series. And the third photo you see here is basically where I live now, where I went to graduate school in Tucson, Arizona. So I live among the saguaros, you might say, in Tucson, Arizona. Next slide, please. Okay. I'd like to start off by asking everyone to imagine the most beautiful starry night sky that you have ever seen, with so many stars that you can't tell one constellation from another, and the Milky Way arching overhead so bright that it casts a shadow of you on the ground. Okay, scenes like that really do exist, and I've been lucky enough to experience them, but scenes like this are slowly disappearing. Next slide, please. And one reason is because of electric streetlights. Now, technology is wonderful, but we have some sort of level of responsibility as to the consequences sometimes that technology can bring. And in the mid 1880s or so, the first electric streetlight happened in London. It appeared in London, and just less than 30 years later. Next slide, please. We have them in Los Angeles, and you could see from the top slide there, that's actually what the city looked like from the observatory at Mount Wilson at the edge of town at that point, or a little bit further away at that point. You could see the lights in Los Angeles in that top image in 1908. And 80 years later, to the same scale, you have the picture on the bottom there, in 1988, still seen from the same location at Mount Wilson Observatory. You're looking at the city and you're noticing the population growth, obviously, and then the lights that follow, basically. So there you have it. We have technology being wonderful, lighting up the night, but in essence, lighting up too much of the night in many ways. So let me just show you the next slide, please. This is the result from a global point of view, from a satellite image that stitched together a number of night sky images. And you can definitively see where the countries are because of the upward light that is from unshielded streetlights mostly, and unshielded residential lights going up into space where they're not used on the ground, energy that's totally wasted, and therefore we see this in this image here. So today I'd like to talk a little bit more about that. How does it, let's go to the next slide. How is it relevant to you? You're saying, well, I don't know, I don't really care. But yeah, it has a lot of relevance to your life on a daily basis. And that could take the form of energy, safety and cost, human health, and wildlife, in addition to just being able to enjoy a beautiful starry night sky, or if you're an astronomer, to do astronomical research. So if we go to the next slide, I'll show you a little bit more about this. Okay, here we have in the circumstance of just energy and energy waste, we have about 13% of residential electricity use in the US specifically for outdoor lighting. And 35% of the light is wasted by unshielded or poorly aimed outdoor lighting, as I was mentioning before. This causes something called sky glow, which is an artificial night sky brightness caused by light pollution. It translates into about $3 billion worth of energy loss during the year for the United States due to sky glow. And about, you could say 15 million tons of this CO2 or carbon emissions are emitted each year to power these residential outdoor lighting in the United States. And to offset that amount of carbon emission, you could think of it as being the need to plant probably 6 million trees to offset that carbon emission, basically. So it's pretty significant. If you go on to the next one, which I know our supporters for this particular event would probably like to know more about, or it's akin to, that the effects on health and effects on our lives on a daily basis. So artificial light at night negatively affects human health. It does increase the risks for obesity, for depression, for sleep disorders, diabetes, and more. And it disrupts our day-night cycle, the circadian rhythm, which governs our sleep-wake patterns. Our bodies produce hormones, a hormone called melatonin in response to the cycle. So every night it repletes. In the daytime, it actually naturally depletes. Melatonin is what helps us to remain healthy. It has antioxidant properties that induces sleep, boosts the immune system, lowers cholesterol, and helps functioning of thyroid, pancreas, ovaries, adrenal glands, and more. So the bottom line basically is that exposure to artificial light at night, especially blue light, suppresses this melatonin production. So we want to try to keep our nights when we're sleeping as dark as possible, and especially not have blue light around when you're trying to sleep. Next slide, please. And that goes for indoor and outdoor lighting. Okay, so it's been shown through various scientific studies that wildlife, including insects and amphibians and birds and fish and mammals, need both daylight and darkness for normal functioning, as do humans. So all the artificial light during night hours can result in confusion and a change of natural instincts. These changes can include a decrease in eating and mating and sleeping. It also can cause the animal to become more vulnerable to predators and wander into other dangerous situations. So here's a couple examples I'll pick out. Sea turtles, for instance. Sea turtles in Florida are attracted to bright lights of the hotels on shore. And once the babies hatch, not all of the sea turtles return to the ocean, and they're attracted to lights on shore. And they follow the bright lights and wander into local streets and freeways. And this, of course, results in deaths, both for the mother turtle and baby sea turtles. And as a result, many of these turtles have become actually endangered species. For migrating birds, these often get misguided by bright city lights, and they land in the cities instead of in their destinations, where their proper locations of where they're going. This causes an overpopulation of birds in the cities and an underpopulation of food in the cities. Many of these birds end up dying. If starvation does not kill them, then oftentimes the city chemicals and cars do. Finally, it's well known that birds fly into bright lights at night in these cities and causing them to collide with buildings and falling to their deaths. And it's estimated that 1 million birds die this way in cities in the United States each year. Okay, next slide. Okay. So also, sky glow washes out the night sky, preventing people from just simply enjoying a beautiful view of the starry night sky. And sky glow also prevents astronomers from studying faint objects, which is mostly what they do, studying faint objects that are far away, because the night is too bright. So that prevents them from doing that kind of research. So this photo in particular is taken from Kitt Peak National Observatory, where I'm close to. It's only about 65 miles away from the city center. And even though the lighting laws in Tucson are extremely good, we still have this glow above the city that's called sky glow due to the light pollution from city lights. All right, so I'd like to also talk about the next slide, which is the effect on our cultural heritage. It's not just astronomers and not just all the other things I talked about today, but it's the effect on our cultural heritage. we're very bent on actually making the making the night into a day, basically. And this the Starry Night sky has influenced not just astronomers but artists in many of the decades and millennia that have gone by. People in like the last few centuries, like Van Gogh and his painting Starry Night, or Holst in his musical composition called The Planets, or Shakespeare in his sonnets about the moon and stars. Astronomy has inspired many, many artists. And without this means of inspiration and inspiring their imagination, we lose a lot when we lose the starry night sky. So just think about this for future generations. That's what I'm trying to say. So on the next slide, what can we do about all of this? You know, how can we protect the night sky? And one of the institutions that is a leader in all of this is something called the International Dark Sky Association, and their email is darksky.org. They're a great place to go for more information. And they also advise 5 things at least that everyone can do, at least in their homes. And the first one is to light what you need lit and where you need it lit, and not to overlight, basically. Another is to use energy efficient lights and only use the lights that are as bright as you need them and not too bright. And then to shield the light downward. And that means shielding on the top and on the sides of the light, so you really don't see the light itself, but you do see the effect on the ground or the footprint of light on the ground. And then also to use timers, because really, you don't need the light all night. You need it until you go to sleep, and then you can turn the lights off. You can make that automatic, or you can have motion sensors. And then to choose energy efficient lights, or lights that are considered what they call warm, which are more of the yellow and the reddish type of lights, not the blue lights. All right. So that's the practical advice you can do as a homeowner. And next slide. And another thing, oh yes, sorry. I like to drive home the shielding part because I think that's really important, and it's really something we all can participate in as homeowners, especially. If you have a light that is not shielded, you might have something like this globe light on the left-hand side of the slide here, where it lights everywhere, even where you don't need it, and your night sky ends up being so overlit you can't see any stars, basically. But if you can do something like the shielding that is on the right side of this panel here, where it's shining only downward, you have a win-win situation, because you not only light what you need lit, but you can see the starry night sky. So that's my point here. Next slide, please. So what else can you do? And here's where we get to globe at night. This is my central to my life here too, is this wonderful citizen science program that invites people around the world to measure the night sky brightness and submit their observation to a website called globeatnight.org. And you can do this from a computer or a smartphone, and everybody in the whole world's invited, and anywhere in the world, you're all invited. And the campaigns are typically 10 days, a month, each month, and it's a different 10 days because it does depend on the lunar phase. We'd like to have the first half of the night purposefully as dark as possible so that people who are awake, especially, can participate, and especially young kids. We'd like to have kids involved in this, students. So we have so far about 211 measurements from 180 different countries all over the world in the last 14 years, we're proud to say. Could we go to the next slide, please? Okay. Sorry. Okay. So here we have, actually, I made some charts for you guys in Pittsburgh area, so that this would be what you would see if you looked southwest in your sky in the middle of the campaign that's coming up, that starts on July 12th. And you would see pretty much the stars in Vega on your left and Arcturus on your right. And you're gonna be seeing 7 slides, 7 different charts, and I'm gonna put them now in this slide and the next slide, and they're gonna show you progressively a darker and darker sky. So what you start with is in chart 1, is a very polluted situation, probably more like you'd see in New York City, where literally you'd only see 10 stars in your entire sky. And those 10 stars are your brightest stars. You won't be able to see anything fainter than your brightest stars in the night sky. And those stars include, if you're doing globe at night and you're looking toward that area of the sky for globe at night, they will include the stars Vega and Arcturus. So as we progress along, you're going to see that Hercules and Boötes fall between the stars Vega and Arcturus. And as you progress to darker and darker skies, which are the stars, the charts will increase in number, you will see more prominently these constellations of Hercules and Boötes. So if you go to chart 2 here that you see in this slide, you'll see a little more stars, but not quite enough to, if you go back one, please. If you go back to the previous slide, thanks. And then to chart 3, you also see progressively more stars, and you begin to actually see a couple of the stars. I wish I had my pointer, but that are just to the left of Vega, and you see a couple stars that are in Hercules, for instance, and a couple of the stars to the left of Arcturus that are in Boötes. But if you do go to the next slide, as Caroline progressed before, in chart 4, you actually see most of the main stars in both constellations. The main stars in Hercules will look like what they call a keystone or a trapezoid, very close to that corner of the dashed lines, sort of the lower left-hand corner. You'll see 4 stars that represent a trapezoid, and those are the main stars in Hercules. Whereas if you go to Arcturus and you look to your upper left, you'll see something that looks like a skewed kite with 5 stars that are the main stars in Arcturus. And as you progress along to chart 5 and 6 and 7, you see more and more stars. 7 and 6, chart 7 and 6, are pretty much like you'd see in the national parks. You're not going to see that from most cities at all, unfortunately. So if you go to your next slide, here's how you report out for globe at night. Okay, you're going to have, if you go to globeatnight.org and you click on report, it's going to take you to what you see here, and you're going to be asked 5 questions, and then the 6th one is just hitting the submit button. And it's so super easy. But the hardest thing to do, actually, for me, is to wait 10, 15, or maybe 20 minutes till your eyes get dark adapted. And then literally, it's going to take you less than 30 seconds to do this, this app. Okay. So while you're waiting, you might be able to put in, for instance, the fact that you know, your date, time, and location. But if you have a smartphone, the first thing it's really going to ask you before you get to the app is whether or not you can allow Globe at Night to have access to your location. Because what this is going to do is allow us to use your GPS location and automatically put in the answers for number 1 and 2. Number 1 is your date, time, and location, and number 2 is, your date and time, and number 2 is your location. And if you are not going to allow access, that's fine. You have to put in your street address maybe, or maybe the closest corner of 2 streets that are nearest to your observations that you're making for Globe at Night, or maybe you're at a monument like the Eiffel Tower, brightly lit city of Paris, but anyway, maybe you're near a monument and you put in that location and it'll automatically find you and insert the latitude and longitude into our database for Globe at Night. So you don't need to worry necessarily about your latitude and longitude. And again, if you have a smartphone and you've said that we can use your location just for the database, not for anything else, then thank you. Your number 1 and number 2 are put in automatically. And you can notice too at the top of the screen, you'll have a choice of putting it into dark mode, so that it's not a bright thing that's influencing your measurements. You'll be put into a sort of a pinkish screen. And then you can go on to number 3, which is the meat of all of this. It actually shows you a bunch of charts, and these are the ones I talked about before, charts 1 through 7. And chart 1 again will be like in New York City. Chart 7 will be like in a national park. So if you're in a city, it's probably going to be somewhere in between. And if you click through the little thumbnail images at the very bottom of part 3 there on our slide, you will see the big rectangle change in terms of the charts you're choosing. And what you're doing here is not counting stars. All you're doing is you're looking at your constellation of either Hercules or Boötes, and you're saying, what is the faintest star that I see there that I also see in my charts right here? And you're just matching the best match between the charts on the app and what you see in the night sky. And that's all there is to it. And where you leave it, the choice you leave it at is your measurement, basically. It's as simple as that. And number 4, you have 4 choices for your sky conditions or your weather conditions, basically. And we're praying that you don't put number 4, that you're not out in a cloudy night sky where you can't see anything, because that will not really allow us to acquire any good data whatsoever. So hopefully your conditions are either clear or near clear. You know, one of the first 2 options there. You also have the option to put in some text if you want to for what your location conditions are like and what your sky conditions are like, but you really don't need to do any of that at all. So literally, if you have automated, you have a smartphone and it'll put in the information for 1 and 2, you simply have to put in the information for 3 and 4. And then if you're lucky enough to be part of the library programs where you can actually check out a kit, a kit for Globe at Night and borrow a sky quality meter, then you have the option of putting in the reading that you get from the sky quality meter in number 5, and I'll show you that in a minute. And then once you've done that, you don't have to, if you don't have a sky quality meter, you can leave that totally blank. And then you just move on to number 6 and click on submit data and you're done. It takes literally less than 30 seconds. So next slide, please. And here's your sky quality meter. This is very easy. So it's a point and shoot kind of thing. It's no bigger than a deck of cards. You put it above your head, make sure you have no obstructions, and you just hit the start button, and you make sure that the sensor is up. And then you'll see the reading on the display, and that reading will be a number probably between 14 and 22. And you just record that number within on your Globe at Night app that I showed you in the previous slide, and you're good to go. Okay, the next one, please. Okay, I'm trying to catch up on my slides here. So what, some people ask, what can the data be used for? And it's a great question. The data is used a lot to monitor over time what changes might be happening so that you know if you have to take any action in making things more shielded or change situations so that it becomes more protected. You can do things like lighting surveys for cities, which Norman, Oklahoma did a great one. I think I might be showing you in terms of lighting surveys, so they could take the data to their city council. You can search for dark sky oases for those who are amateur astronomers and really want a dark site to observe at. You might want to monitor lighting ordinances for compliance, or study the effects of light pollution on animals or human health or energy consumption, a number of different ways to use the database. And I just thought, if we see, what time do we have here? I don't know the time, but if we have a couple of minutes, we can show you some results from kids that have been involved in making projects out of the Globe at Night data. If we go to the next slide, please. There you go.
Yeah, and I think we'll have to start Q&A pretty soon.
Yeah, so we're almost done. Yeah.
All right.
Well, this is just kids in near South Bend, Indiana, making a Lego map out of their data. And they had 35,000 pieces originally and took away 12,000 to represent their map. They got a lot of publicity, excuse me. We had another one on the next slide from Norman, Oklahoma, who did a survey of high schoolers and amateur astronomers, did a survey, both of natural, the visual data and their SQM data, presented it to the city council. It took a couple of years, but they've got their lighting ordinances strengthened. And let's go to the next one. This is the one with undergraduates who took 3,500 sky quality meter measurements of Tucson and compared it with Arizona Game and Fish data of 13 bats that avoided city center. And they wondered whether it was on purpose because of light pollution. And that study was really pretty interesting as well. Let's go to the next slide. And then these are the dates. just showing you the dates here. And the next one starts on July 12th. We hope sincerely all of you will get involved and help us protect the night sky. Last slide. Here's my pre-picture of Starry Night. One thing I didn't mention that I know I should mention is that you'll find that in the data, you'll have different colored dots that you'll see in the maps. And I meant to show you that in the earlier map. The brighter the dot is the brighter the sky, and the darker the dot, the darker the sky. And that's our sort of our way of displaying the data. And that's it.
All right, thank you so much to Dr. Walker. Now I'm going to hand it over to Michelle, the director of the South Butler Community Library, to ask Dr. Walker some questions.
Well, thank you, Caroline. And Dr. Walker, that was very interesting. And I guess I should have gotten some meters before we started this project so I could loan them out, but we'll get a quick look on that. I do have a question. We are in a very rural community. So why is it important for us to do this versus people that are closer to the city?
Well, your city is going to grow, and the Pittsburgh is growing too. And so the sky is undoubtedly going to become brighter and brighter and brighter. You need the means with which to monitor the situation and to know when you should be taking action in terms of making your lighting situation in your city better. So it's really, really, for instance, if your city council decides to change its lighting and go with a source of lights that are bright white LEDs that are at what they call 5,000 Kelvin, that's what they call cool light. That is not a very wise choice, right? And by continuing to monitor the situations, you'll know, it'll give you the ammunition with which to make the right kind of choices. So, and Pittsburgh too, you might have an influence on when they're starting to grow towards your city of, is it Saxonburg, Pennsylvania? Then, you might be able to influence their city council as well.
Oh, that's interesting.
A quick note from the SciStarter team, a sky quality meter isn't at all required to do the project, just so everyone knows. There are some libraries, especially in the Phoenix area, that lend them out, but I would really love to see the whole South Butler community do globe at night, and don't worry, you do not need any specialized tools aside from your eyes to participate.
Absolutely, that is very much true. Thank you, Caroline. But if you do want to buy them, I can get a deal for you. So come talk to me afterwards.
Sounds like a plan. Have you worked with other libraries or Girl Scout groups or any other organizations as far as like we are going to do and really try to get more participation in our area?
Yes, I've worked for many years with the Girl Scouts in particular, and for many years now with SciStarter. The Girl Scouts had a Get Moving project, I think a number of years ago with the junior cadets, and they had a book that came out that had mentioned light pollution and globe at night in it, and we worked on that. And we have a very strong council here in Tucson that I've worked with over the years and done workshops with, and then through SciStarter. Boy, they have such an incredible dashboard for globe at night that allows volunteers to get involved that we have been very grateful for. And they have introduced us to the library in Phoenix, which we've done some work with, and especially through the Citizen Science Association. We've done work through there, which touches on with Girl Scouts as well, and with libraries as well. So there's so many venues that we've been fortunate to be involved with. Have I left anything out, Caroline?
Oh my gosh, well, you did a great summary. I also wanted to remind folks that we have the Think Like a Citizen Science journey for Citizen Scientist journey for Girl Scouts, where Globe at Night is featured. So if you're a Girl Scout or part of a troop, you can access Globe at Night through there. And of course, if you go to SciStarter.org/library-resources, if you're on the library side of things, you can access different kit materials and ways to make these kits. And for anybody, anyone who, if you're a citizen scientist or a part of a library staff, if you go to SciStarter.org/NLM, that's where you can make your SciStarter account so we can measure collective impact and see how many people from this event went and did Globe at Night. So I've rambled enough, so I'll let Michelle ask her next question.
Well, also, it makes a great gold award or silver award project. I've worked with Girl Scouts on that as well.
Well, one of my other questions has to do with your background and what you've done to prepare as an astronomer, because I'm hoping that there are teens and tweens that look at what you do and say, that's really interesting. I need to know more about her job. So as an astronomer, what school subjects did you have to be good at? What do people need to have interest in order to be an astronomer?
Well, math, a little bit. Okay, you have to know a bit of math to get through the physics that's involved. You have to know physics pretty well. So those two subjects and some computer, programming skills are really, really good. So, so that's probably the three things I would say you need to have in terms of at least your college education. You have to be pretty good in math and physics in high school. But I was not, I was not the top student in any of these things. You just have to have, you really have to have motivation. You have to really want it with all your heart. And then it becomes more, it's really enjoyable. It's not a chore at all. And the path, I have to say, is never a straight arrow, right? You always have diversions. And for me, I had a few diversions along the way.
As an astronomer, are there what other jobs, you're involved in this project? What other types of things do you do on a day-to-day basis? What other kind of people do you work with as far as other scientists or technicians or other people that are part of your team?
Well, it takes a village, right, to make an observatory run. And I'm actually in the communications, education, and engagement department. So I'm not always doing straight research at all. I'm writing articles, I'm giving workshops, and I work with people that do those kinds of things that are, in a lot of cases, better at it than I am. So, and it, you have engineers you work with on different projects. You have, you have people who maintain the mountain in terms of electricians, or even the cook in the kitchen. I mean, there's so many people you interact with. So it's not just, doing research in astronomy. It's a huge number of different kinds of people that you work with. Does that answer your question, Michelle, or am I not?
It does. Yeah, it does.
Okay.
I just think giving people an idea of, you think of, you get to stare at the skies all the time, but there is daylight. So what all are we doing?
And I think we'll get one more question from Michelle before Michelle opens it up to questions from the audience in the Zoom room and on YouTube. So Michelle, let's get one more question from you.
Well, one of the things I wanted to see is, what are the most interesting places you've traveled to and seen great skies? Because I think that's got to be a benefit.
Oh my gosh. One of the most interesting places, I have to say, was actually South Africa. And you wouldn't think about that, but they have an observatory there. And I had not really seen too much of the southern sky, southern hemisphere sky at that point. And there were two other people and we stayed up the entire evening and just kind of gawked at the night sky, because what had happened to really make it impressive and make us want to stay up the whole night is that they had something called the zodiacal light that just seemed to emit from the horizon all the way up, like at least up to 45 degrees above the horizon, brighter than the center of the Milky Way, brighter than anything up that was up there. And the zodiacal light, what that is just dust in our own solar system that's that has sunlight reflected off of it. But it was just so impressive, and I had never seen anything like that. And that just kind of re-energizes you, as an astronomer.
Awesome.
But I've been many places all over the world, yeah. So, but that was one of my favorites, yeah.
That's amazing. So either Michelle or our friends on the panel, Michael, Tess, or Robin, have any questions come through that we can ask Dr. Walker from the audience?
Sure. Hey, everyone, it's Michael. And there is a question from Jackie. Jackie asked, will I need internet? I have a great place in mind, but I don't have cell phone service and 4G there.
Ultimately, you need to input your data with the internet, but you can actually, we have these activity guides that you can download, at least the page that you record the data on, and you can actually upload it later on. So if you don't have cell phone service or internet service at whatever site you'd like to take the data, it's perfectly fine to jot it down on a piece of paper. And that form, page 4 of most of the guides, they're in like 27 different languages. So if say you want English, you go to page 4, you print that out, you bring it with you, and you're fine. You can just jot it down and then go to the Globe at Night website later and submit the data.
It looks
Thank you
like
so much.
it looks like we have another one from Larry. I've read about the launch of the Starlink constellation of satellites for internet access and that they're reflecting light that interferes with astronomical observations. To what extent does the very large number of orbiting objects interfere with the science of astronomy?
Oh boy, I'm very, very, very involved with this topic. We just finished a workshop, 4-day workshop last week, and we're going to have more. It does impact astronomy a lot. We are working with SpaceX actually, and they have done an amazing amount towards trying to get that brightness down. They had something called DarkSat, which reduced the brightness of their satellite by a factor of 3. They now have an orbit and going to their final height of 550 kilometers, one that is called VisorSat, and that actually literally has sun shields on the brightest parts of the bus of the satellite, and that hopefully will bring it down to a factor of 10. That's still not quite enough, but it is perfect for amateur, photography. It might not be incredible for, if you're doing lengthy shots of the night sky, you're integrating, but it's almost good enough for astronomy research in that you'll still see the streak of something across your image or streaks across your image, but you won't necessarily see the artifacts. There are lines that happen because of the streak, a lot of artifacts in the image that will hopefully go away if they can bring their brightness down by at least a factor of 10. So we still have problems, but we're working towards solutions, basically.
And we have time for one last audience question. So Michael or Tess, is there another question for us?
Yeah, there's one question from Michelle, and it is, I hear October skies are the best for viewing the sky.
I think that is a little bit based on where you live. Because October skies for where you live might be very stable skies, very cold skies, very crisp and clear. And that's why it does, a number of places are good for October. I would say too, it also depends on how great your constellation is. And I know that for at least September, the constellation for the Northern Hemisphere is Cygnus, and for the Southern Hemisphere is Sagittarius, and they're perfect for doing globe at night. In fact, I'm thinking of doing a little challenge for people because for the September Globe at Night campaign, you actually have equal day, equal night for most of the whole world, and so you're on a level playing field. You don't have like June 21st was the longest night for the Southern Hemisphere, but the shortest night for the Northern Hemisphere. So that's kind of unfair. But if you have something like the equinox on September 21st, you can use that Globe at Night campaign to do a challenge for all over the world to see which location can get the most measurements, right? So that might be a challenge Caroline and I can talk about a little later.
Ooh, let's do it. But
Yeah.
We're going to have to move on now to, thank you so much to both Michelle and to Dr. Walker, and to Michael and Tess for an engaging Q&A section. Now we're going to give the mic to our friends at All of Us Pennsylvania.
Hi, I'm Lori and I work for the research program called All of Us Pennsylvania. And I also live here in the South Butler community where we had a great partnership with the South Butler Community Library. Thanks, Michelle. It's been a lot of fun. So All of Us is a precision medicine study, but what does that mean? It's a new way of looking at health treatment and prevention as being designed for individuals. Doctors could take into account a person's lifestyle, environment, and biological makeup to figure out the best treatment for that individual. Next slide. Next slide. So the neat thing is that we already have precision medicine in some way, such as eyeglasses. Eye doctors can tell us exactly which lenses will work best for us, but when we visit our regular doctor, they may be more likely to prescribe the treatment or prevention that works well for most people, but we aren't most people, are we? Next slide. One of the great parts about this research is that just about everyone in the US can participate as long as they're over 18. Taking research into the community is the best part of this, and All of Us Pennsylvania is doing just that. You can actually get started by visiting our website at joinallofuspa.org. Next slide. When a lot of people pitch in to help with this research program, we build a large national database to help eliminate one-size-fits-all medicine. And we would love for you to get involved and consider joining. Even though we can't be out in the community right now, you can get started with the online portions of completing the consent forms and then doing the surveys. Consent forms will give you all the information you need to know about the research program to see whether you want to join. Next slide. If you join, then you can complete surveys and let the researchers get started by including you in this national research program. Once we can get back into the communities, we will return to places like the South Butler Community Library, where we can collect your blood and urine samples and complete the physical measurements. That will make you a full participant in this research program. And if you don't live in this area, that's okay. Maybe you don't even live in Pennsylvania. You can still join the study. You can find a local site in your area by visiting joinallofus.org. Next slide. I want to thank you for joining us, SciStarter, the National Network of Libraries of Medicine, and South Butler Community Library for bringing the Globe at Night program to us. Stay tuned for some more details from Michelle, including a way to enter a drawing in the South Butler community area. Thanks.
Thank you so much to Lori. So now I'm going to hand the mic over to Michelle to give us some special announcements for South Butler participants.
Well, if you're here and you are part of the South Butler area, we do have that special gift card drawing, thanks to All of Us for providing us with a gift card. So we ask that you, there's a link in the chat as well as on our resource page that you can complete so that we have your information, and we'll be doing that drawing within the day. So definitely try to enter if you're in the area. We want to be able to get that gift card out to somebody. Also, this is part of our Summer Quest program. So if you are participating and you are in our program in Summer Quest, please go and log the fact that you attended this webinar in the Beanstack app, and you will earn prizes, raffle tickets for prizes. You also earn a badge for your health literacy. So that's good, but you'll need that code word, which is Healthy Skies, so that you can prove that you were here. So that's the key word to remember. So moving forward, we always want everybody to be inspired to learn more, and we hope that this webinar has done that. So let's use our library to look up more resources, books, DVDs, e-resources that you can borrow from the library. There's a recommended reading list in the resource page, and we'll also have that available through the library so that you can find more books and things to further your research on these topics and other related topics. And there's also a really excellent citizen science guide. It's called the Field Guide to Citizen Science, and it is available through our Freeding application, which is an ebook. So you can go to the library website, go to Freeding, and look up the Guide to Citizen Science and be able to use that as well. So we look forward that you're using lots of resources, not only for Globe at Night, but to further your citizen science journey.
Thank you, Michelle. Yeah, and for those of you who don't have Freeding, I know South Butler does, there are lots of different ways to access the Field Guide to Citizen Science through library e-media. And actually, Globe at Night is in this book. It's featured in the Field Guide to Citizen Science, which was co-authored by the founder of SciStarter. So we encourage you, if you're at South Butler, to access it through Freeding. If you're at a different library, to use whatever e-media or digital download services you have. And this is what the book looks like, the Field Guide to Citizen Science. Join the Citizen Science Brigade and start making a difference. So you might be wondering, I just learned about Globe at Night. I'm all fired up to learn about this and make a difference through citizen science. How do I get started? Well, you go to SciStarter.org/NLM. That's the URL. We want you all to go there right now so you can make your SciStarter account and you can access instructions for Globe at Night. We also have the tutorial on this webpage for you to learn more about citizen science and dig a little bit deeper into the field itself. And we're also going to have a recording of this webinar posted on this page after we're done. So please go to SciStarter.org/NLM to make a SciStarter account and participate in citizen science. We also have another event coming up. This is part of a series of events called Summer Reading Meets Citizen Science. And for our friends in Pennsylvania, we have another Alzheimer's and Citizen Science Q&A where you can learn about the Stall Catchers Project, which is also featured on SciStarter.org/NLM. So please register and feel free to join us on July 23rd at 2 p.m. Eastern Time. And stay tuned as we announce more summer reading events. Summer Reading Meets Citizen Science. So in conclusion, thank you. Thanks for being here. Thank you for being passionate about these issues and wanting to make a difference through citizen science. We hope that you go to SciStarter.org/NLM. And then my final note for all of you is I hope that you take the 4 minutes we left at the end of this webinar to make your SciStarter account and to fill out our survey about this event. Let us know how we did. We're going to be doing more of these throughout the summer featuring citizen science and summer reading. So we're open to constructive feedback to make the events even better, and we hope to see you again online sometime soon. So I know that my colleagues will post the link to the survey in the chat. It's also on that resource sheet, and we'll also follow up via email with all these different links. I know we've thrown a lot at you, so feel free to watch this again or stay tuned for those notes. Anything else from our panelists before we all go today?
No, thank you very much for inviting me to be here.
And I just want to thank everybody who collaborated to make this happen. It isn't something that a small library gets to be a part of often. So we're very glad to have so many willing partners.
All right. Well, I'm going to pull up the survey right now because let's do it. We want to evaluate the event. So I'm going to share my screen again. You all had the survey link in the chat, so make sure you fill it out. Help us help you do citizen science. And I'll just quickly show you all too on the NLM page what it looks like when you make your SciStarter account. So you go to SciStarter.org/NLM. I'm going to log out really quickly because I want to pretend that I'm making an account for the first time. So let me log out and refresh this. So there's the tutorial I mentioned. You can access it right there. And more information about online events here too for our summer reading series. But you can make your SciStarter account right here on this widget on the side. And then those Globe at Night instructions I mentioned, you get those right here and a participate link right at the bottom. So with that, I think we're going to call it a day. Thank you to all of our partners and see you all online soon. Bye.